Alright, good morning ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Seems like every time I touch this Stairmaster every morning, it seems like I have to wipe it. It's been consistent lately that it's always never clean, so I gotta clean it myself. And how do I tell? It's because I can always see the finger marks on the buttons. So therefore, if there's finger mark, then nothing's been wiped down. Anyways, is there anything to talk about? Huh, not really. I guess the craziest thing is that on the TV, it's US Senior Open, which basically means it's a senior golf game. So just like old grandpas playing golf. But these guys must be cracked, right? I think they are. They've been cracked. They've been like young. So yeah, I guess in Primal Fear yesterday we did kind of just like pretty much beat the game almost. I mean, I knew the last thing to do in Primal Fear is kind of the boss extensions, but there's like two more tiers, Spirit and Chaos, but we're pretty much done with Primal Fear. Yeah. The only things to do left is like maybe make an army now, but we've got our assassins now, so that's pretty cool. Raven's a perfect assassin, along with Protocon, and Miku is our bruiser, I guess. Got plenty of Origin blood now, Origin Trank arrows, so yeah. Pretty much we're nearly done with the game. Pretty much. Maybe make the base look a bit nicer. But I mean, it's not really. It's just there. So yeah, Primal Fear's nearly come to an end. How interesting. We're still not done with tabs yet. Still doing tab. Lots of campaigns, but we're almost finished with tabs too. Well, pretty much we nearly have. It's just campaigns now. We already figured out the strategy for it. Cheerleaders and whatever long range thing there is. But for today, we might do some Forza Horizon again. I think we're pretty close to finishing the campaign almost. Just a few more rally races to win. I have to force ourselves to play some cross country. I think the only thing left in Primal Fear that I want to do is make a glass cannon Thorny Dragon. Like basically no points into health, max into melee, and see how it goes. And I also think that max level 1 as well. I mean, obviously we're going to try to find the story video today, but I think you guys also knew from like last week or like a few days ago. Focus on your own lore, because like we're gonna try to avoid the ones with too much lore, especially the crime ones. Those take too long. Yeah, focus on your own lore. So we just avoid. We just need the quick, like the quick, short, medium length stories that have some kind of lessons. The crime ones are more about like, hmm, I don't know how to explain it, but it is what it is. I'll decide what we listen to and stuff. See what kind of topic there is. But the ones of like twisted crimes or missing people, those are kind of just like, I don't know. We'll avoid those ones for now. They have too much context and no results. So today's plans are kind of simple. It's this, then Alpha 3 regime, and then dips, and then food, and then editing, and then I'll see what there is next to do. Again, Primorphy has nearly come to an end, pretty much. I mean, I know there's like the bosses and stuff, right? But how many times in my series have I really done the boss part? Not really. I mean, we've pretty much completed the game almost in Primal Fear. It's got the highest tiers, pretty much. The last ones are just like the boss ones, right? Which require like a crap ton of artifacts and stuff like that. I'll see. Again, most of the time when we do Arc series, it's more about the journey than the end. So the journey to getting to where we are in Arc has been pretty good. And the water's done too. And we're nearly done with this as well. So I'll figure out what kind of story videos there are. I'll try to avoid the like really long crime ones. You know, those really long videos I can pretty much summarize it for you. The first case that we looked at was just a really scuffed ecosystem, right? Super scuffed. Guy does some bad stuff and keep getting released and then just doing more. But it's also at the same time, anything before technology is really hard to track. So just like Breaking Bad, identity swaps, hard to track down, no mobile devices. So like, you know, anything before the 2000s, murderers, missing people, pretty easy to get away with. But in today's modern day, it's pretty hard for that. Something, I can't remember actually. But then the third story was ecosystem, right? That son probably has a whack family because the older brother lets him get away with his attitude. So it's just, oh no, yeah. Now, and the second story was like someone murdered the child, but nobody knows who did it. Oh yeah, and I guess in Overwatch, it's still pretty bad. Frame rate's nowhere near as it used to be, but yeah. I think after Primal Fear, we're probably gonna uninstall Arc again. It's been good though. It has been really good. We managed to survive Primal Fear, one of the hardest mods, without too much tragic losses. Actually, yeah. At best, we've only lost the Rios. Haven't actually lost like a team yet. Like a proper one. All I know is that today's episode we're going to be taming a bunch of other stuff. Alright, well, that's about it. So, see what kind of story videos we can see today. But yeah. Alright, well, see you guys soon. Right?
Remember the prices from like time? Look at it. Oh, you can't even see it. It's 287 now, and y'all complaining about the gas.
Hey, what's good? Radio. 1 year ago, Let's Read uploaded a video called Nighttime Stories. 4 true, scary middle. My ears. True middle of the night stories. That gonna be interesting. Lock in.
Half my like
Y'all know the deal.
East Hampton, huh? That's a real fancy place. So I kind of knew what to expect before I got
I think I skipped too much.
there. Sit there.
Here we go. Let's
When I
go.
was in high school,
High school.
a friend of my mom's asked if I wanted to babysit their kid for a few hours. They offered a generous rate of pay, then after I proved myself capable, they asked if I'd be interested in babysitting for a friend of theirs. I said sure. They gave me a number to call, then once we'd made arrangements for me to babysit for them, they gave me their address. They lived out in East Hampton, about 45 minutes drive from my home in Medford. As soon as my mom found out, she said something like, "East Hampton, huh? That's a real fancy place." So I kind of knew what to expect before I got there. But when I actually saw the house for myself, I was blown away. Their house was basically 3 of my mom's houses put together, with a gigantic backyard, a huge pool, and even a giant chessboard with pieces half my size. The inside looked like the sitting room set from The Fresh Prince, with a cream color scheme and a wood paneling giving the place a very distinct air of class. The kids' mom and dad were very warm and welcoming, and when they introduced me to their 9-year-old daughter, all my reservations instantly evaporated. Instead of some bratty rich kid, Angie was just as delightful as her parents, and I knew from the moment that I met her that we'd get along very well. She wasn't too demanding, and was content to just watch a movie or two until she got too tired to keep her eyes open. We'd order pizza, watch some tapes, eat a ton of ice cream, then I'd either chill out or work on some homework until Angie's parents came back from wherever they'd spent the evening. Sometimes it felt almost criminal just taking that money. You know, they paid my gas money, paid for the pizza. They even made sure the fridge and pantry were all stocked in case I got hungry after Angie's dinner time. Then, with the family home being as incredible as it was, it fast became my favorite sitting job. Now cut to Friday, October 16th of 19...
Sounds pretty chill to me. You're basically the babysitter for Leah. I mean, yeah, that's the job. So that means it must have something to do with some of the strangers in. Some bad guy probably walked into the neighborhood, huh? Probably, that's what I'm gonna... yeah.
Too, and the family in East Hampton had arranged...
This is 20 minutes long? GG.
...for me to come over for what'd be my 5th time sitting for them. I drove over after school, arrived at around 4:30, then Angie's parents left for dinner at around 5. We ordered pizza, did each other's hair while we watched TV, then broke out the crumb cake at around 7. We were still finishing our slices when the phone rang, and upon hearing it, Angie spins around and asks me if she can be the one to answer it. Her parents sometimes call just to check in on us, and I figured that there was no harm letting her pick up the phone, and so I said, sure, why not? Angie ran up.
You should give the phone after you know who's on the... Like, why would you do that? It's a 9-year-old. They're unpredictable. That's so dumb, not gonna lie. Don't do it. Why would you give the kid... I mean, sure, sometimes the parents call, right? But as the guardian, you should be taking the phone first. Matter of fact, isn't it like mobile phones? Who calls the... That's a bit suspicious.
Off to pick up the phone, and I stayed put, eating my cake. The phone was mounted to the wall dividing the sitting room and the kitchen, so I could still see and hear Angie as she ran over towards it. She reached up on her tiptoes, grabbed the handset, and in a way that was so adorable it almost hurt, she says, "Hello, you've reached the residence. How may I take your call?" And I watched her with this big, proud smile on my face, but following her grand introduction, a confused look came across Angie's face before she asked, "Hello?" for a second time. There was another pause, and then she turned, raised the phone up, and told me, "There's no one there." I put down my cake and then got up and walked over to her. She needed help returning the handset to its cradle anyways, so I took the phone from her, put it to my ear, then heard the sound of a dead line. I told her it was probably just a wrong number or something, and then we went back to finish off our cake, but not 10 minutes later, the phone rang a second time. That time, I got up to answer it, and when I did, I'm guessing I heard the same thing Angie did. I picked up the handset and asked, "Hello?" and then got nothing in reply.
You know, when it comes to phone calls, if I'm receiving a phone call, I don't actually say anything to the phone. I literally don't say anything. I just hold on to it and listen to it. If I'm receiving a call, right? If I'm sending a call, of course I'm gonna say hello. I'm, me, right? But when I'm receiving a call, I don't say anything. I'll be like, listening. Who is it? You know? Yeah, that's what I do when I have phone calls. If I'm receiving it, then you better speak up. Tell me who you are. If not, I'm gonna hang up on you. Be like, who? No, fuck, beep, beep, done. And just back to my usual stuff, right? When I'm receiving things, I don't even say hello. It depends, right?
I asked hello again, then after another pause, I heard the distinct sound of someone hanging up a phone, like that old plastic rattling before the line goes dead. I remember that exact moment, that feeling of confusion shifting to one of creeping dread. And that made it 2 silent calls in just over 10 minutes, and I'd seen enough cheap thrillers to know that that wasn't a sign that anything good was about to happen. I just didn't think that it had anything to do with the family I was babysitting for. I thought that it was all about me. And yes, I phrased that in a deliberately egotistical fashion, but only to reflect on how stupid and self-centered I felt afterwards, because due to the very severe limitations of my 17-year-old mind, I became transfixed on the idea that it was a guy from high school that had been bugging me around that time. He'd slid notes into my locker at school, asked my friends to pass on please to call him, or, my least favorite, wait for me outside the girls' bathroom before basically cornering me on the way out.
What?
He'd also somehow managed to get a hold of my home phone number at one point, and he'd called my house one time, asked my dad if he could speak to me, and then said nothing for like the first 10 seconds once I'd been handed the phone. But the worst thing was, my mom and dad thought that it was cute.
Huh?
It didn't seem to bother them much that his attention was completely unsolicited. Their solution was, ask him to leave you alone. And then when I told them that I'd already tried that, it was, well, ask him again. And that's why when I realized that there were silent calls, my first suspicion was that my unwanted Romeo had somehow gotten a hold of the family's home phone number.
Impossible how?
And I was too busy trying to figure out how that could happen to consider any other more frightening possibilities. Angie asked who was calling, so I lied for a second time and told her that it must have been a wrong number. She might have been one of the sweetest girls I'd ever babysat, but Angie was not gullible and was vocally confused as to why someone would call the wrong number twice. I made an on-the-spot joke about them having pudgy fingers or something, which served as just enough of a distraction to get Angie's thoughts off of the silent calls. I didn't think my stalker, and I use that term very loosely, had the stones to actually show up to the house. He seemed to be more about opportunity than anything else. But it was still a lingering concern for me, and one I didn't want to pass on to little old Angie. Another hour or so went by, and we were fast approaching Angie's extended bedtime of 10 p.m., our little secret.
10 p.m.? Bruh, she's... Okay, damn. She's 9 years old. What are you doing? She be bed by now.
I asked if she wanted one last soda, diet of course, with no caffeine.
Bro, it's like 10 p.m. What are you doing drinking soda? I bet the babysitter might be a bit bigger. I don't know.
And no zoomies, and then walked into the kitchen to get us some drinks. The layout of the house was such that the kitchen led to a dining room via a set of double doors, with the dining room windows allowing a view of the driveway outside. When I walked past the doors the first time, empty-handed, everything seemed perfectly normal. But when walking past it a second time, with a can of soda in each hand, I saw the headlights of a car shining down the driveway. The family had sort of an intercom at their automatic gate, and if you didn't have the little key card or the code or whatever it might be, you had to be buzzed in to even get access to the driveway. The car was stationary, its front bumper pointed at the gate, but the intercom in the house wasn't buzzing. My first thought was maybe I just caught the car turning around, but nope. It stayed put like it was waiting for the gate to open. Then I figured it was Angie's parents arriving home early and that, I don't know, maybe they lost their keycard or something. I walked into the dining room to get a closer look out of the window, studying the headlights as the car idled by the gate. And then suddenly, silhouetted by the car's headlights, I saw 3 or 4 men climb over the gate before they began walking down the driveway at a very brisk pace.
GG.
I remember the feeling, this rising panic as I put down the sodas on the ledge near the window, and then walked toward the phone as quickly as I could.
Police.
I remember grabbing the handset and trying not to sound too panicked as I loudly asked Angie to head upstairs. This was like a whole hour before her promised bedtime, so she was very naturally dismayed at the sudden change of plans and began asking me why. I told her to be a good girl and do as I asked, before putting the phone's handset to my ear. I thought that I might hear the 911 person's voice, or, at worst, the last few dials before one answered my call. But instead, I heard nothing. I remember pushing the little switch to reset the phone, expecting the drone of an open line to return, but I did it once, twice, and then 3 times before I realized that the line was dead.
How is that even possible?
I didn't know it at the time. I thought that I'd simply experienced an astronomical amount of bad luck in having the phone die on me when I needed it most. But it hadn't died. There had been no kind of malfunction. Someone had cut the home's phone line to ensure that no emergency calls could be made.
What is the setting of this? Is there no such thing as a mobile phone? Oh, I mean, it might actually be. Oh, it might actually be then. Yeah, because if they had a mobile phone, this situation wouldn't have happened. Oh, wait, so this is a period where only cell phones existed. Ah. They climbed over the gate. And they cut the home line. How'd they even cut it though? Oh, how would they even cut the phone line? Is the phone like at a pole or something? Huh. Again, this situation wouldn't really work in today's modern things because you have a cell phone. They climbed over the gate. But there's no cell phone. No, you just it's just GG then, isn't it? What can you do? 4 grown men? You're a 17-year-old girl with a 9-year-old daughter? I mean girl? 4 men climb over the compound gate? They cut the phone line? What can you do? It's GG, isn't it? Like I said, if someone wanted to get you, they'll get you. And I guess they're gonna get her.
I knew the family had a second phone in the master bedroom, so after taking Angie's hand, I quickly walked us up the stairs and toward the bedroom door. And by then, Angie had begun to sense how frightened I was, and she kept asking what was going on, her terror intensifying each time I let the question go unanswered. We walked into the bedroom, and when I heard no sound at all coming from the handset of the second phone, that's when I realized something much worse was happening. I know having a bunch of guys climbing a gate and rushing the house was bad enough, but the phone line being dead suggested a very chilling degree of...
You open the windows and you just start shouting like a banshee. Open the windows, lock the door, like, you know, find a room with the best closed door, like with a lock, right? I'm assuming a house like that should have a lock, right? Open the window of the upstairs bedroom and just start shouting and screaming. Like just start going nuts The robbers are going to get you anyway, so you might as well just start screaming as loud as you can outside the window, hoping and praying that your neighbors can come get you. Or the neighbors will, right? Because you live in a fancy neighborhood. Unless you're in a compound where there's no neighbors and you're like basically like it's too far away for anyone to hear you, then it's GG. Yeah, that's... Then you would maybe have some kind of like guns or weapons, right? Rich people should have like a... It's hard... No, it's not too hard to rob... It's not really hard to rob a rich person, right? But it's more challenging, right? They could just camp in a corner with a gun. Again, currently the only situation would be like open the window and just start screaming. They already know you're in the house. Well, they'll find you eventually, so there's no point of hiding. So you might as well open the window and just shout as loud as you can, scream and hope that someone hears you and calls the police. Right? Like that's actually the only way. You ain't got there's no such thing as a mobile device in this period. And yeah. That's all you could do. You ain't gonna win a 1v4 against 4 grown men that might have a gun themselves. So
organization from these guys. Those guys were not your average home invaders, if there is such a thing, and realizing that brought a level of terror that I can only barely describe. And by then, there was no hiding my fear anymore. Angie was demanding to know what was going on, and I couldn't think of a lie quick enough, so I just told her the truth. I told her that there were some bad men outside, and that they most likely wanted to break into the house and that we needed to find some place to hide from them. And I'll never forget how completely petrified Angie looked in the seconds after those words left my lips. And I still beat myself up about it all these years later, but in the moment, there was nothing else I could think of. I was 17, scared out of my mind, and Angie knew her home better than I ever could. I was reliant on her to be able to find the best hiding place possible, and that transfer of responsibility terrified us both. Right then on cue, we each heard a loud, dull hammering sound coming from downstairs as the men outside started to try and break in. Angie screamed, and I remember grabbing each of her arms before shushing her. I tried to be gentle, trying to keep her as calm as possible. Then I asked her where the best hiding place in the house was. There was...
I mean, like I said, probably would have been best... They already know you're inside. Right? They already know you're inside. So, trying to be quiet and stuff. What are they going to do? Rush? It's either they rush to you guys, or... They probably... Yeah, I mean, like, I would have just shouted out... Would have just told them to shout out the window and hope that your neighbors can get you. Right? Basically, be the alarm. Be the alarm. Maybe you could even like trigger your fire alarm too. It might be worth it. Get a match, hold the match near your fire alarm. Make it start going crazy, you know? That's one way to activate the fire alarm.
like a voice in my head in the moments after I asked her, one that screamed at me, how the hell is she supposed to know she's just a little girl? An innocent little girl that you are failing to protect. I still feel, almost, at least in principle, that voice was right in the milliseconds that it popped into my mind. A girl Angie's age probably thought the back of her closet was another dimension, or that the space under her bed would be sufficient to hide us both from violent criminals. But in reality, Angie knew the perfect place to hide, and it was nowhere I could have ever taken her. After I asked her about the best place to hide, Angie thought for a moment, and then took me by the hand and started leading me towards the home's third floor. When we got to the top of the stairs, there were 3 doors in front of us, 2 of which clearly led to larger rooms and one smaller door that turned out to be a closet. Angie took us to the closet. When she opened the door, I saw shelves on either side filled with boxes of old junk, along with a bookcase against the rear wall. I remember telling Angie that we needed somewhere bigger, someplace the bad men wouldn't see us if they came and opened the door. I spoke, but it was like Angie didn't hear me. She ran over to the bookcase and reached to the back of one of the lowest shelves like she was about to retrieve a book. I was halfway telling her that this wasn't the time for reading when I heard a loud click coming from behind the bookcase. I knew in an instant what Angie just did, but that didn't stop my jaw from hitting the floor when she used all of her strength to pull the bookcase away from the rear wall. The only reason that she could do so with the strength of a 9-year-old was that the bookcase was actually mounted on a huge set of hinges, and behind it was a short, downward leading staircase. It was weird feeling almost amazed, but at the same time I didn't feel surprised at all. Of course they had a safe room, and of course they told their 9-year-old daughter how to access it in case of emergencies. But what really did surprise me was just how well this safe room was decked out and how Angie's demeanor shifted completely once the door was closed behind us. I remember how she reached up and flicked on a light switch that illuminated the stairs in front of us, and then after taking a few steps downward, she turned and told me to close the door. I followed her.
My bad, I kind of forgot they're rich as hell. I guess that strategy is better than shouting at the window. I mean, clearly from the context, it just sounded like, you know, I mentioned Gigi, right? I guess they got some kind of secret place. We would have been dead in a situation if it was... I wouldn't have expected a 9-year-old to know it's a rich house, secret hidden door. Yeah, I guess. Still, though, I'm pretty sure shouting for the neighbors would have been a good strategy. It's like, because they're gonna get you anyways, right? Except the fact that they have a secret place, I guess that... Yeah.
Her downstairs after doing so and was greeted with the first of 2 rooms. That one was basically a small sitting area, complete with bookshelves, a TV and VHS combo, with some snacks and bottles of water stacked in one corner. The next room, however, was essentially some kind of command center. There was a wall of TV monitors, all linked up to security cameras in each room, with an attached panel of switches that meant that you could both see and hear what was going on in the house. But the most important, and possibly the most impressive thing, was that this command center had a working phone. I don't know if it was hooked up to a satellite or a hidden alternate phone line, but when I picked it up and heard a working dial tone, I almost burst into tears from the sheer relief that I felt. And I called the cops. I told them everything, but it didn't make Angie feel any safer. She felt safe the second the door closed behind us, and after announcing that the bad men couldn't find us in there, she went about deciding what VHS tape that she wanted to watch until the bad men had gone away. It got to the point where I couldn't decide if she was the bravest little girl I'd ever met, or this was something that had happened before. Once I was done talking to the authorities and then telling Angie that the cops were on their way, I asked if this was something that had happened prior, and she said no, but that her mom and dad had shown her what to do in case any bad men came to the house. She then put on a VHS tape and sort of settled herself down on the couch opposite the TV and asked me, "Do I still gotta go to bed at 10 p.m.? And the question alone almost knocked me off my feet. But once I'd regained what little composure I had, I told her no, that she didn't have to go to bed at 10, and that she was probably about to have her latest night ever. It was incredible, really, seeing a little girl acting calmer and more collected than myself in the middle of a crisis.
I mean, look, if I knew I had a secret, hidden room, I'd be chill too. I'd be like, oh, we chilled then. I don't blame the little girl. But from our perspective, we didn't know there was a secret room. From our perspective, it sounded like it was just one of those normal, rich houses, right? So it would have just been GG. Once you get past the compound, it's over. Well, I mean, the thing is, again, it does depend on the context of like the compound and gate, right? Because usually, if you have a good if you got a compounding gate, the door is like twice as hard to break down. Like, sure, you can climb over the gate, right? But how are you gonna get through the bullets? How are you gonna get through, you know, the door, the steel door? How are you gonna break through the bulletproof glass? You ain't getting in here. That's already the safe house. You know, it just depends on the context, right? But obviously, if you got a compound, you would have a steel door that even police can't even break down with a baton after like 100+ tries. Bulletproof glass, they can't get in. You know? The fact that these rich people have a secret room with security cameras, surely they was it strapped in? I don't know. Just like...
Yeah. Like Angie said, she knew
you can't do much about it because, like I said, we didn't know the context of the place. You know? But if you were the parents, would you tell the babysitter where the safe room is? That's the real question. Would you tell the babysitter where the safe room is? That is actually kind of difficult. That is actually quite difficult to wonder. If you had a babysitter, would you tell them where the safe room is? I mean, yeah, it just depends on the context, right? Because if I was the babysitter, I would have just been shouting out the window at the neighbors and just being like, "Yup." Me and the little, you know, we'd be like, "Yup, this is it." Shout out the window. If they get us, GG. But this is our only shot. I would just be loud as hell. If there were no mobile devices, etc., etc.
Drill, and I guess that knowledge dispelled any fear of the chaos unfolding downstairs. But not only was it chaotic, what I heard over the monitors scared the living hell out of me. I remember walking back into the little control room or command center as I referred to it before and taking a moment to study the little switch panel. It wasn't hard to work out how to switch the monitors on, and it wasn't hard to switch audio feeds either, but listening to what those men were saying down there made for some extremely difficult listening. I expected to see them looting the first floor, grabbing all the various electronics before running back down the driveway to load up their vehicle. But that's not what I saw when I switched on those monitors. They weren't looking for expensive goods to steal. They were looking for what I can only assume to be Angie. I realized before I heard anyone talking, because none of the four masked men seemed in the least bit interested in the huge TV and lavish stereo system that was in the living room. They were going from room to room, opening up closets and looking under beds, and then moments later, I managed to catch two of them talking to one another in the same bedroom that we'd been in just minutes before. One of them asked something like, "Where the hell is she?" before the other told him, "I heard her voice." And I was frozen, thinking about what might have been happening to us at that moment if Angie hadn't taken us to this safe room. And I carried on watching the men downstairs, waiting for the cops to show up until there was suddenly a whole bunch of commotion from them, presumably after they'd heard the sirens coming from the street outside. And after that, that's when those men ran. And finally, when I could see only uniformed officers walking calmly into the rooms downstairs, I opened up that safe room door and then told Angie to stay on the couch while I went to talk to the cops. And that was the one time she openly disobeyed me, and I can't say that I was mad in the moment. She just wanted to say hi to the people who had come to rescue us. It made for a very cute ending to what had been the most terrifying experience of my whole short life at that point, and to be honest, nothing has ever really topped it in the terms of sheer terror that I felt. Not to mention that skin-crawling feeling of knowing those men were after this girl that I was watching, and not just money or jewelry.
Oh, I mean, they would have still got money and jewelry. Kidnap the daughter. Make the father and parents pay a bribe or ransom. Yeah. My question is, how did the robbers escape?
The officers were then able to contact Angie's parents because they'd left the address of where they'd be that evening, and they were back home and hugging their daughter within a half hour of the cops first arriving. The police managed to catch the driver of that car, but he claimed to be just some getaway driver and had no idea what the others were planning. The others, though, were never caught, but the security cameras recorded what they'd said about looking for the girl, and by the girl they almost certainly meant Angie. And Angie's parents thanked me for saving their daughter, and I had to actually sit them down and explain that I didn't do anything. It was actually Angie, the little girl that had saved the both of us. I'd done nothing but tell her about the guys breaking in. They said that they'd understand if I didn't want to babysit for Angie anymore, but all it took was the thank you letter that she sent to convince me that I had to stay. I mean, it definitely sweetened the deal that they'd promised to hire armed security in the future, would basically meant that Angie had a second, much more intimidating babysitter, but there was no way that I could just turn my back on her. And I guess that makes me sound a little crazy, but that's honestly how I felt. My love for that girl and her family overrode any fear of a repeat home invasion. And besides, if it did happen again, I knew exactly what to do to keep her safe from the maniacs who wanted to kidnap her.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the parents are a bit dumb. What's stopping the robbers from finding the caregiver and repeating it? Who's the babysitter? Oh, let's go here. Let's go there real quick. Kidnap the babysitter. Put a knife to her neck. Hey, where's the safe room in the house? GG, and then you just copy and paste this situation. Trust issues. I mean, if someone wanted to get you, they'll get you, I guess. There's only so much you could do. I don't know. This situation's kind of a bit weird because it's so... it's like, in the past, right? In the past, people, like, yeah, I mean, just like... I've said this many times in all of these horror stories, right? The stories in the past, more shit can easily happen without consequences, right? But in today's world, mobile phone, every single device listening to you, security cameras everywhere, street cameras everywhere. You know? If they wanted it, if the police want to get you, they'll get you. They just choose not to get you because you're not worth it yet. But they will. That's actually the true thing, by the way. If you're wondering why there's so many crimes and criminals still out there, it's because they allow it. Because they need a balance. Right? If they really want to get someone, though, they'll get you. Now, sometimes when you see criminals get released from jail early, or like druggies, or like just like, how do you get out? Or how come you got away? Or how did he get away? It's because the cops were like, he got away, I guess, is what it is. But if they really wanted to get you, they'll get you. It's all about, what is that? What is the thing that Sensei says? It's all about care. How much do you care? How much do you want it? You know? Yeah, it's all about care and how much you want. You know what I mean? That was a definitely interesting story video, not gonna lie. Pretty interesting. First one, again, if I was in that situation, I probably would have got the girl killed because I would have actually just opened the window and shouted out loud, right? But then again, it depends on the context, right? If the house was like further away from the neighborhood, like from the nearest neighbor, then I probably wouldn't shout out the window and hide, right? But if there was like a neighborhood, I would obviously shout out the window for the neighbors to hear, right? Like, who's gonna stop you? You know what I mean? Like that I mean, it just depends on the strategy, right? If you just open the window, your neighbors are kind of close. if you shout as loud as you can, someone's gonna hear you. The neighbors are gonna hear you, be like, oh, I heard a scream from this house. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Also, if you're gonna have a secret room, you would have strong doors as well, and I mean, the story made it sound like this safe room's like crazy good, right? Security cameras everywhere, etc., etc. So then, I would assume you would have strong doors as well. So how did the guys actually break down the door then? Like the fact that you have security cameras in every single room and audio. I was like, what? You've got all that. And you got a separate working phone line. So how'd they break down the door? You know what I mean? Just without visualizing what the actual house looked like, it's hard to really talk about the story too much. Because we're kind of put in here blind. Right. We're put in here blind. We don't know what kind of rich house it is. It's got a compound, but they can climb it? You know? There's a phone line, but they somehow how'd they cut the phone line? I don't know. Oh well. Is what it is. Again, in today's world, it's, I mean, look, even in today's world, if someone wanted to get you, they get you regardless. It doesn't really matter. Alright, Legion, I appreciate it, right? That was a pretty interesting story. Not too much to talk about. Except this was like 40 minutes long, but yeah. Definitely gonna watch the rest next time, e.g. tomorrow, right? Tomorrow we'll do the rest of it. So far it's not bad. It's not bad. It's just, yeah, most of the horror stories we listen to is like not modern. They're all like before cell phones or like, you know what I mean? All right, appreciate it. Bye-bye.